Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a seriously captivating piece of local folklore, the fifth tale of the seven wonders of Nanma. We're going to start with this mesmerizing visual puzzle from a legend known as Tate-no-Hana, and basically unpack exactly how a totally bizarre local myth manages to hide an incredible historical truth.
So let's just jump right in with a fun, honestly kind of impossible-sounding question. Can a waterfall actually be made of white rice? I mean, I know it sounds completely absurd, right? But let's start with this bizarre thought because it's directly inspired by the local legend we're unpacking today. The tale actually describes this glittering, brilliant cascade of grain pouring straight down a mountainside. It's an image that survived for generations, and our job today is to figure out exactly where on Earth it came from. Picture the legendary view from this southern tip of Mount Takio. In the local dialect, a protruding point of a mountain is called a hana, which makes this specific area Tate-no-Hana. It was from this exact vantage point, looking out toward the Suwayama Castle ruins in the distance, that witnesses claimed to see this massive, brilliant white waterfall of rice just pouring down the slopes, literally a waterfall of food. Which brings us to part one of our breakdown, the reality, also known as the Fukahodo battle.
Now, to actually understand this glittering myth, we have to step out of folklore and into the gritty reality of the Sengoku period. The real truth behind the legend is the region's largest conflict, the Fukahodo battle. You've got the attacking forces of the Utsunomiya clan on one side, and on the other, the Minagawa clan, who were heavily besieged and trapped inside the fortifications at Suwayama Castle. This was an incredibly desperate standoff, you guys. The Minagawa garrison was heavily outnumbered, and they were quickly running out of time.
So, what do? Let's look at part two, a desperate decoy. Put yourself inside that castle for a second. You're starving, you're trapped, and your allied reinforcements are severely delayed. Something incredibly drastic had to be done. So the garrison executed this wild do-or-die strategy. First, in a display of just sheer absolute desperation, they took their precious remaining white rice and poured it down the mountain summit. This created the massive visual illusion of a shining white cascade, all to confuse the enemy troops below. Second, using that brilliant diversion, the remaining troops charged headfirst down the slopes. And finally, step three, this chaotic breakout was timed perfectly to link up with their allied reinforcements who had, at long last, just arrived. A real Hollywood moment, right? And that leads right into part three, a historical draw. Now, you might expect this brilliant, flashy, tactical breakout to result in the cinematic, glorious triumph for the Minagawa clan. But, well, history is rarely that simple. Despite the legendary rice decoy and the absolutely fierce fighting that followed, the historical record states pretty neutrally that neither side could actually secure a win. Ultimately, the battle ended without a victor, and both the Utsunomiya and Minagawa clans just mutually withdrew. So yeah, this massive, legendary conflict basically ended in a total stalemate. Let's move on to part four, tracing the landscape today.
To really grasp the scale of this whole battle, let's map the past right onto the present. Looking at a modern satellite view of the Nanma area, we can literally pinpoint the exact locations where this went down. Tucked away down in the bottom left are the Suwayama North Castle ruins, the very spot where the Minagawa clan desperately poured their remaining food reserves down the slopes. And honestly, checking out the topographical map of the region highlights just how insanely challenging this environment was. Just look at those tightly packed contour lines showing the mountainous, jagged terrain of the Fukahodo region. Both the attacking Utsunomiya forces and the defending Minagawa forces had to navigate these incredibly steep, unforgiving inclines. It makes the whole idea of charging down the mountain during a siege all the more terrifying and honestly impressive.
By zooming out a bit and examining the broader Nanma Castle domain, we can get a much better feel for the strategic layout of the area. It's this complex network of upper and lower fortifications that really define the entire conflict. We're not talking about just one isolated tower here. It was a highly connected web of defenses spread all across this massive mountainous landscape. All right, bringing it home with part five, redefining the legend, Tate or Yakata. To wrap things up, there is this totally fascinating modern linguistic theory from our source that completely flips how we understand the location's name. And it actually comes down to a single character. So the word Tate in Tate-no-Hana usually just translates to a generic building, right? But it can actually be read as Yakata. And Yakata carries a very specific, respectful nuance. It was the title used exclusively for a castle lord's grand residential mansion. So why does that matter to us?
Well, historians noted that the lower fort of Nanma Castle was simply way too narrow to actually house a grand residence for a lord. Therefore, the source deduces that the actual lord's mansion, the true Yakata, was likely built right at the site of the former Shokunsha shrine. Now, sadly, the shrine itself burned down during the Heisei era, but its location remains a really vital key to this whole puzzle.
Because think about it. This brilliant little reinterpretation means that the location shouldn't actually be called Tate-no-Hana, but Yakata-no-Hana. The legendary view of that sparkling rice waterfall wasn't just seen by some random villagers. It was highly likely witnessed directly from the Lord's own residential vantage point. When you look out from the forested paths entering the castle area today, you can just imagine the Lord standing there, watching his desperate troops pour their only food away in a final glittering bid for survival. I mean, sure, calling it a literal waterfall is an exaggeration, but as our source points out, well, that's just the nature of folklore, isn't it?
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Does this glittering myth of the rice waterfall intentionally mask the true desperation of medieval warfare? What was actually a grueling, unwinnable battle that ended in a mutual withdrawal was somehow transformed by time into a magical, sparkling legend. It really leaves us to question, how many other beautiful local myths out there are secretly hiding the incredible, harsh truths of our history? Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I really hope this sparks you to look a little closer at the legends in your own backyard.